In the shadow she lurks, a digital sage. Her words cut through like a sharpened blade. Political cow, her voice brings rage. A rebel in the neon-born parade. With a keyboard she wields her might, piercing lies with truth's own light. Drifting through the endless night, exposing wrongs to make them right. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show. A beacon where the lost clouds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred, her voice is the sword we've heard, cutting ties with every absurd, leading flocks with every word. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show. A beacon where the lost grounds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred, her voice is the sword we've heard, cutting ties with every absurd, leading flocks with every word.
What's up, people? Happy Monday to you. Wait a minute. It's not Monday anymore, is it? We're well on to Tuesday at this point. So I hope you had a nice Monday. I just said it in the chat. Got that one wrong again. Hope you're off to a good start to your Tuesday. Hope Monday was nice to you. I think I'm trying to pause this thing over here. My goodness, why is it trying to play? Relatively uneventful Monday, relatively speaking, because we're so accustomed now to Trump signing executive orders, signing legislation, signing things left and right, approving his nominees, giving speeches, making position statements, everything. And today there's a little bit of a breather. There wasn't too much of that going on, interestingly. But of course, I got my 4 quadrants up here on the board, looking at what everyone's talking about. You got CNN talking about the Dow plunging 500 points on recession fears. Then they have Trump, opening up, ringing the opening bell. You've got MSNBC over here with Lawrence O'Donnell talking about a Trump session. Maybe I'll bring that up here in a second on the screen. We could all take a look at it together. But he's talking about a Trump session. They've already given it a name. Fox News, of course, is talking about Michelle Obama's new podcast. Why that is, I don't know. And BBC is covering some... Where is it? That Philippines? Oh, wow. Okay, ex-Philippine leader arrested. How about that? Stuff going on in the Philippines. But you got all that stuff going on. And guys, like and subscribe. Very grateful. We can match up the number of folks that are actually on the live with the number of likes. That really helped me out. I appreciate it. I mean, all the gifts and stuff are fantastic, but honestly, just hitting that like button, subscribing, that'd be the best. That's the best way to support the community, support the herd as we continue to grow. Just hit 20K recently. I feel like I'm meandering like Trump. What do you think? We just kind of mimic our leaders sometimes. I don't know. But we hit the 20,000 mark. That's unbelievable to me. Unbelievable. Really crazy. I mean, I didn't think that would... I didn't even think that was a reality. But, so Trump has got quite a bit of stuff that's still going on behind the scenes. I would need to look at his agenda to see specifically what he had on his plate today, but there's things going on in the background that I want to kind of share and maybe set the stage on a few things. Wait, I'm not getting all the messages. Hang on, guys. It does this to me sometimes. Filters the chat. I got to reload this page. I've offloaded the stream stats onto a different screen so that my main browser doesn't keep crashing on me. And wouldn't you know it, the one I offloaded it to, completely different device, has decided to crash. Why that is, I couldn't tell you. Let me just open it in Safari. What the heck's the problem here? Bear with me, guys. It would not be one of my streams if there was not technical difficulties involved. I mean, seriously. For those that know, you know. One of these days I'll have this all sorted out. But for now. Okay, well, that'll load. I'll just try to get this up on the screen. There's a few things I want to walk through, though. We do have a pretty significant, I think, recession that's headed our way. And for the folks that have been watching the channel for a bit, you know I've been talking about this for a while now. It's not anything that's a complete surprise by any stretch. I mean, I saw this coming, for quite a while, and it's partially due to just valuations in the market. You just look at how much things are out there, and we are just like way overheated in our markets. So you see the first thing I got up on the screen here, the S&P. That took a pretty good hit, almost 3% down. The Dow, of course, down 2%, and then the NASDAQ taking the biggest hit, right? Almost 4% down today. Man, come on. I can't see this. I apologize, guys. The chat is not loading for me. See if I can get that chat to load here. Can I get the chat to load, people? Well, it was just right here. Then it decided to disappear on me. All right. So anyway, markets are all headed down. It's not letting me bring up my graphic here either. There's a few stats that I wanted to kind of talk through. I'll just talk through it since I can't bring up the graphic, unfortunately. GDP, the Federal Reserve, a series of banks, they each have different focus areas, but I think it was the Atlanta Fed, if I'm not mistaken. They just updated the forecast recently here for the first quarter to be negative. Let me see if I can bring up the chat on my phone. I might be a little bit delayed, but at least I'll be able to see it. They just said the GDP will come in at negative 2%, 2+% and change, something like that. That is going to be a pretty crazy turn of events. And that's for the first quarter. Now, keep in mind, a lot of the first quarter earnings and stuff baked into it is going to be, what comes in from, the aftermath of the holidays. If there is any, new sales that come in the spring or what have you, early springtime, from a retail standpoint. But for it to go and take such a nosedive all of a sudden, that's a pretty significant event that it makes that big of a turnaround. So if that comes in at negative 2.5%, and remember, this will be interesting what the Democrats say to this, because 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP growth, that's by definition a recession, just textbook recession. If you have 2 consecutive quarters of negative GDP, you're officially in a recession. That happened during Biden's tenure. I don't think a lot of people remember that, but they immediately pushed back and said, no, that's not true. That's not the definition of a recession. And what did they do to answer that? They hit the button on the printing press. Finally, the chat popped up. It says, vote for Pedro. Very nice. Wait a minute. Top chat. I don't leave me all chat. Sometimes unless I tell it to give me all chat, it like hides stuff on me. I don't know why. I can't vote, says Maine, because I believe the Democrats as a party are at fault. Well, I can't argue with that, my friend. Can't argue with that at all. So GDP has already been brought down a good bit, and one of the key stats I've been highlighting is something that's not commonly discussed by Biden or by Harris. They've always talked about the stock market. I mean, you see it here up on the screen. It's red. They would say the stock market is your scoreboard. That's how you know you're winning. That's how you know the Democrat Party is winning. The policies that we have are winning. This is how you drive an economy forward. And you would see all the stock market indicators, hitting all-time highs. But nobody stopped to think, look at these tech companies. They're multi-trillion dollars and have valuations that are, 100 plus in price to earnings. When was the last time you saw anything like that? Right? That was the dot-com bust era when we saw numbers like that. Last time we really saw stuff like that to be in such an irrational and excessive scale was during the dot-com bust. And so you see NVIDIA now getting kind of cut down the size all the way down to, maybe they're like 38, 40 times earnings. I don't even know if that's sufficient. It needs to come back a little bit more, in all honesty. So rotation's happening into defensive stocks right now. That's a sell at any cost situation. The markets are pretty dangerous to me. It's not financial advice. It's just what I've observed over time. And if you guys have been watching my streams for a while, which hasn't been going on that long, you know that a couple months ago, I sold everything. I'm just sitting in cash. Crypto's out. Everything's out. I'm not in the stock market, anything. I'm just sitting here. I'm just waiting. I'll start to, get back in slowly over time here. But we still haven't had that massive selling event, right? The big frenzy that's going to hit at some point. My opinion, not financial advice. But that was the metric. Look at the stock market. That's the metric that the Democrats would always say. Tells you that they're winning, that you're winning. When in reality, people couldn't afford groceries. That was a major disconnect. They would say, look at GDP growth. You're winning. But the combination of GDP, the combination of CPI coming down, which is the inflation number, and the stock market going up. And then they would also point to the unemployment number and say, hey, look, it's holding steady. It's under 4.5% or whatever the mark is that they're looking at. I think it's at 4.1% right now. But they'd say, look, all these numbers look great. Of course, the problem is you look at unemployment and it doesn't really tell you about the quality of jobs. It's more about the quantity. The Federal Reserve is about full employment. It's not about quality employment. So who care less that you have a job that pays you, a decent standard of living? Forget livable wage. I mean, just for you to be able to have a standard of living that you want. It doesn't care about that. It just cares that positions are filled. So all these jobs to the Federal Reserve could be, flipping burgers. And yet we would have the same thing. Maine says crypto's on its normal schedule. It's the reactions are going to get exaggerated here significantly. So we saw it went from almost 110 all the way down to 78. What's it now? Let's go. Let me bring it up on the screen here. Bitcoin 80. Okay, well 80. Dropped down to 76 a little bit earlier in the day. Ooh, Ethereum's under 2,000. So they were just looking at these numbers, the Democrats were, on the surface. They didn't really give it a lot of deep thought. And even though they would say that they're for the people, and they'll still insist they are, they're not really doing the things that matter or that'll make a difference to people, right? So, of course, in the case of the stock market and the other things, those are the metrics they would look to kind of say that they're winning or that you're winning. When in reality, again, I said it already, people couldn't afford groceries, they couldn't afford the rent. You have to look at economic surveys and indicators that actually show you what's really going on. I always talk about Redfin. I think they do one of the best surveys out there to measure how households are doing. And in their survey, I apologize, I don't have my slide up here. In their survey, 70% of the Gen Z respondents said they cannot afford rent on a month-to-month basis, that they sell their belongings, that they in fact skip meals, do all sorts of things, borrow money from friends and family to pay their rent, right? I mean, that's what Redfin's concerned about. It's a real estate aggregator. Well, it's more than a real estate aggregator, but this is the market that they're interested in providing analysis and deep insights into. So you look at that number, 70% of Gen Z. Now, Gen Z's been around for a while. They occupy a good part of the labor force now. 70% of them are in that state. And then it's no wonder that Trump had such a wild swing of Gen Z voters going to him. It was a landslide in that segment. Very unexpected, but it was a landslide. And that's basically why, is because of that disconnect and because of the lack of connection by the Democrat Party. And I mean, that lack of connection to me, is it because they don't care? Or do they really have such a massive omission? Like, I don't get it. I don't get what the difference is there. I mean, honestly, I think they don't care personally. They're just after power. Not to say the Republicans aren't. There's plenty of them in that same mindset. But I think the new crop that's come in, I'll even go all the way back to Marco Rubio, who seems old school now, but he came in on that Tea Party wave way back when. He's not the same as the Jeb Bush dynasty of Republicans. He's not a rhino. So, Redfin again, 70% cannot afford rent of Gen Z voters. You double click into that. Well, 50% of voters nationwide, all households, cannot afford their rent on a month-to-month basis. They struggle to make those payments. And again, they go late, they borrow money, they sell their assets, which could be their couch, whatever it is, to make rent payments. 25% of all households skip meals. 25% skip meals to make those monthly rent payments. And you start to get these numbers that speak to, real economic data. And then you look since 1980, real wage growth on an annual basis goes up by 1.5% annually. And you compound that over time and it's gone up a bit. But you compare that to the price of goods. Now, I'm just looking at 1980, right? I'm not going back all the way to 1929 or whatever to look at Great Depression, but since 1980, because you can see the corrosive effects of inflation, you see that the price and cost of goods has gone up dramatically in comparison. It's far outdone wage growth. And so you have to stop and recognize that the system is broken. We have politicians and government officials that are looking at numbers that don't really matter to Main Street, that don't matter to people. That's how they measure their success. Whereas you have people, they're saying they can't afford eggs. I mean, eggs are the big one right now because it's such a high price ticket item at this point. But nobody's listening, right? What's the solution? Let's print more money has been the solution for the last 4 years. And that's why Trump coming into play, it's not about let's print money and hand it out. It's let's change the system. Let's disrupt things. Change the system and let it work for more people. Because in all honesty, it's the Democrat response for years now has been throw money at the problem. And now more recently, it's throw money at the problem, but let's make a new problem by printing that money that we're going to throw at things, not just raise taxes and tax and spend. So the Republicans then, at this point, are disrupting the system. They're reconstructing the system, and part of that is making the government smaller so it doesn't have to be such a massive consumer of tax dollars. Because the budget has to balance, and nobody's raising taxes for more revenue to come to the government, so they keep printing. That's the balancing of the budget I'm talking about. The government cannot default on their obligations. They'll just print more money and put it out there. So that's the dilemma that we find ourselves in, that we've had such a long period of time of disconnect and a broken system. That system has to get addressed because we got to figure out, how do you make real wage growth happen? The increasing in inflation and cost of goods only drives up asset valuations, which translates into stock market price, translates into real estate price, right? So anybody that's a major asset owner, large funds, BlackRock, extremely wealthy folks, they stand to benefit in those situations. It didn't really, the printing press that Biden had did not really work to benefit, the mass population in general. So that's the disconnect that's happening right now. Let me get out of the crypto and go back to the stock market indices here. So things are starting to unravel a bit. And we're just seeing signs of it now reflecting on the scoreboard. I saw leading indicators of this, right? Because things didn't quite look right towards the end of last year. What is this? Let me look at this. Oh my, the internet claim China. Politics are probably to blame. Yeah, they are to blame. My eggs are only $3 in the big city, Tucson. Oh wow, that's great. The funny thing to me is if I buy like one of those cartons of like mixed eggs and just throw it in a carton, that's actually considerably less than, I think they're like $7-8 where I'm at right now, just for a dozen. I don't know why. These are lab grown eggs. I couldn't tell you. So the economy is what's really crazy here. And as we hit this recession mode, and guys, please subscribe. It would really help me out with the circulation on the live stream. But as we start to enter into this phase of a recession, what will companies do? I mean, large corporations will look for ways to maximize profit, maintain margins. And one big driver of that right now is through outsourcing. And I think the point that a lot of people miss is they always understand the outsourcing on manufacturing, but they don't take seriously or give enough consideration to outsourcing of jobs that happens through what would be called white collar workers, and just office based staff. I'll say it does not mean that you're rich if you work in the office, and yet that demographic is often dismissed when it comes to these conversations. Everybody is focused on manufacturing jobs, when you have to acknowledge there's a significant proportion of the United States that works in an office, does their tasks, does what they need to do. And yet now they are the ones that are subject to this massive, outsourcing that's coming into play. So the recession will exacerbate this problem. Companies will want to displace American workers. American companies too will displace American workers with folks that are in lower cost geographies, just as an efficiency play. And they will look at one another and try to outcompete. It's a vicious cycle. And the problem I have really is that it's a good short-term strategy to get yourself to be competitive. Is it the right long-term strategy to sustain a workforce that's of high quality and that's long-term committed to your organization? And when I'm thinking of like, larger business structures, 10 billion or greater, publicly traded probably companies, 10 billion or greater in market capitalization that do these types of actions. Is that how you build your organization for the long term, or is this short-term thinking? Because the short-term thought process really becomes a drive to zero. To me, it's on par with the stock buybacks and repurchases, where you just don't have any good ideas. There's no creativity as to what to invest in, or what new products or what new innovations to drive towards. So you just buy back stock to drive up the price artificially. You don't want to put it towards any kind of investments because you don't have confidence in yourself or your staff to make good decisions. So just buy back that stock. So, there's a few things like this that when I say the system is broken, I've been thinking about it more and more lately. I think of myself as a capitalist, but I'm not an absolutist. I do think that there's principles that we should operate on. And the idea that we want to always drive towards innovation, growth, creativity, encouraging that. We should put things in play to do and encourage those types of mindsets. Whereas, the Democrat side or the liberal side, which liberals are not really liberals. Liberals, classical liberals, live in the Republican Party now. That's exactly what Elon is. Classical liberalism. Look that up another time. But we have to encourage the right behaviors through these policies. You look at Kamala Harris, and she would always say, I'm fighting for you. We need to keep fighting. Vote for me. I will hold them accountable. And you just, at some point, have to ask yourself, who's them exactly that she's going to hold accountable? She's going to hold the rich accountable that have given her all these donations at the end of it all. The bottom line, though, is the Democrat actions are always based in some punitive, there's something punitive behind it. It's not something principled where it's driving behavior towards, something that's for the greater good of humanity, or that's going to be creative. It's simply punitive to make their voter base feel better about themselves momentarily. So let's say you did tax that company at 50%. Does that mean that your constituents are going to get that money? No. You're going to spend it on some wonderful ideas that you have as a politician, none of which will come to fruition. And now the Doge, if you go to doge.gov, you'll see an endless list of unbelievable spending that was completely unnecessary. I'm going to take a look at some of the chats here. Cheaper to buy chicken. Kaylin. Hey, what's going on, Kaylin? Demographics don't work for me. I'm also self-employed. I work 24 hours a month for $250 an hour. 24 hours a month for $250 an hour. Hey, Siri. What is 24 times 250? Okay. All right, $6,000. Good stuff, my man. Yeah, self-employed. I caught that afterwards, after I read it second time around. Good for you. And that type of opportunism, I think we need to encourage in more people to look for that type of thing. None of these behaviors are encouraged any longer. You look at how things were in the 60s, as Democrats like to refer to, and there was a lot of ingenuity, hustling, side hustles, self-employment. We have a shortage of HVAC technicians across the country. Look where the shortage is, and you could make a lot of money. Get trained, set up your own shop. You could make a boatload. And yet that's not encouraged any longer. I don't understand what the disconnect is there. Shoot, if I'd start over again, maybe that's the route I would go, and I would build a little empire in the city I'm in. So, that's the difference. Democrats are punitive with their taxes and the policies that they put forward. The Republican ones right now are more focused in encouraging or reinforcing key behaviors, key principles, like growth, improving the standard of living. Because remember, wage growth has not changed tangibly in a very long time and has been far outpaced by inflation. So over the past 40 years, 40 plus years since 1980, the standard of living has gone down, is the bottom line. And Joe Biden and his printing press exacerbated that problem by making it go down by another 30% on people almost overnight. It's a ridiculous thing to come to terms with, but that's what really happened here. To where many families are on the brink, and you see that reflected in the stock market now. So what do you do about that, right? Well, I mean, there's some actions that need to be taken to change the system. I mentioned this impending outsourcing that's happening out there, and it is for office-based staff. That has to be brought into the equation. Trump was very critical of the H-1B visa program. Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy also chimed in on it. Yeah, there's some reforms that need to be made there, but from a tax code standpoint, that may be the way to address it, I think. I've seen a proposal come by that speaks to adjusting the corporate income tax and making it, put it on a sliding scale that's proportional to the amount of revenue a company generates in the United States, of their overall pie. Say we get 2/3 of our revenue from the United States, proportional to US-based revenue and US-based staffing. And so that brings you to kind of like a sweet spot, right? You want those two things to be in line. But if they're out of whack, say for instance, I get 75% of my revenue for the United States, but I only have 10% of my workforce based in the United States, your tax rate will go up at that point. Maybe you would pay a 30-40% corporate tax rate because of that disparity. But if you had 75% of your workforce that was based in the U.S. and you had 70% of your revenue coming from the U.S., I think in that proposition you would pay pretty much zero corporate income tax at that point. And so then there becomes a balance. Okay, well, where is it that companies want to seek? Is it 50-50? I don't know. But it would at least draw a line in the sand and keep a base threshold. Otherwise, it's a genuine drive to zero. All the manufacturing is being onshored again. You see Apple, $500 billion investment. SoftBank announced another $500 billion investment. That's $1 trillion right there. NVIDIA, massive investments. Taiwan Semiconductor, over $200 billion of investment. Manufacturing is coming back to the United States, but that's not the whole game. It needs to be coupled with office-based staff. I think that's the disconnect that we have outstanding at this point as well. Oh, you repaired grandfather clocks. Oh, cool. Nice. See, you found a good niche. Everything. Maine. So everybody, let's give some kudos to Maine. Let me send him one of these emojis here. Holy cow, guys. I'm missing a lot of chats. It just flashed on my screen. I don't know how that happened. Hold on, I'm just going to catch up on the chat, see whose fault. Just some guy, what's going on? I see you got a lot of chats in there. They literally all just popped up for me. Taiwan chips, what about the Taiwan chips? Where did it go? Your chat just disappeared. Taiwan chips, all the best stuff. Staying in Taiwan. Yeah, what's going on? Talking to Senor Bovine over here. But those are the disparities. The system has to change. And hey, guys, like and subscribe. It looks, how many likes do I have? I can't even tell how many likes I have. Man, I am all messed up here on my setup. 7. All right, not too bad. Help me out, guys. It looks like about 90 people on right now. If you could bump that up, I'd be very grateful. Help me get a little more circulation on the video. But those are the things from an economic standpoint looking at. I've been calling this that we've overheated. A couple months ago, I went to cash. This is not it. I think Dow will dip a good ways below 40K. I'm not going to put a target on that. This is not financial wise. This is all my opinion, and I'm just telling you the reality of my life that I'm living right now and actions that I've taken personally. These aren't your actions to be taken. All these across the board, I think they're going to touch levels that they were at back in 2022, before the next round of infrastructure bill and other inflationary policies were deployed. And unfortunately, it's going to hit crypto too, because now that you have a lot of Bitcoin tied up in ETFs, as people are selling, they're going to sell that Bitcoin as well so that they can reclaim some cash in their accounts, and it's just going to be a casualty. That's just how it goes in these environments. No matter how good the fundamentals are, when you're in an environment like this bad, it's just gonna get caught up in the mix. Tesla stock going down 35%. The Tesla stock too going down is another example of catching up with proper valuations. Tesla, Nvidia, a lot of these companies, their valuations were just way, way too out of whack. So that's what I see going on. Let's see what's going on the Twitter here. I've got my pro setup going. Let's see if it starts flying. Yep. So I got one that's scanning Trump news, one that's scanning the economy, and then just my home feed. They've just been blowing up like this all day long. The number of posts and comments and everything that's going through is pretty much outrageous at this point. You can see the level of activity. This is not even real time. It cannot keep up with real time. So every blink you see on any of the columns, it's multiply that by 100. That's how many posts are kind of going through at any given moment. So sum it up, for a long time now, this is my opening monologue, I guess we could say. For a very long time now, the economy has not been looked at in the right way or cared for in the right way. And I think that speaks to the level of narcissism in the Democrat Party, where they believe that they know best and that you should just vote for them for the sake of them being a Democrat. They don't look at metrics that matter to people. They only look at those high-level numbers that are going to drive stock market-based outcomes. Right? Those who own those assets, those who are wealthy, it's just for them. We have to change the game so that wage growth can be a key metric for us. How do you achieve proper wage growth? Well, one of the ways is not to allow the drive towards zero in this massive outsourcing wave that's about to hit. And it's going to hit on office-based staff, because the fix has already been put in for manufacturing. That's coming back. It's not coming back one-to-one. 1,000 employees in a plant in China does not equate to 1,000 in the United States. And it's not to say that one U.S. employee is more proficient or efficient or whatever. It's just saying that with a level of automation, a third of that might come back, right? And the rest is the robots doing it. If you want an example of that, check out Elon's Tesla plant in Austin. Plenty of videos around it. It's ridiculous how automated that thing is. And now he's got the little robot buddy that's running around doing stuff too. But you go from that, man, this is giving me a seizure. Let me get back to the chart. Jeez Louise. Woo. Now let's pull up a little detailed chart on the S&P. I'll take a look at some news on it or something. So manufacturing's fixed. We got to focus on promoting ideas around, how do you deal with office-based staff and the outsourcing that they're going to get hit with. I'm going to drop a link in the chat after I get a couple of videos going on, and I'll pin the chat too, on a petition that I'd like to ask for everybody to take a look at. think about it and sign. And it's the proposal for having an alternate corporate tax put in place that balances things out. It's exactly what I talked about earlier. Balances revenues achieved from the United States with associated US-based staffing levels. So you can't have a situation where you have a company that gets half of its income from the United States but only employs 5% of its workforce there because they've offshored everybody. We need to allow some kind of a balance to be achieved, and that'll incentivize companies to do the right thing in that way, because on their own they're just going to keep cranking out more dollars for their for their shareholders. And again, I'm not pro government controls or regulation. Generally speaking, I do see a disconnect right now in the market that we need to fix, because it's not in America's interest to have that type of disruption happening, especially as this recession is looming. So, all right. Well, thanks for listening to my opening monologue. Like, subscribe. Let me see if we got anything else good here. Do we have anything else good here? And if you guys want to call in as a guest, I do think I have the link for guest call-ins in the description of the video. So you can just click in through there. I don't think I have my QR code up though. Where's my QR code? I don't think I have my QR code for you guys to click through on, but link is in the description of the chat, or excuse me, of the video. All right. So let me look at the board again. Tesla targeted by left-wing extremists on one channel. What's this other one say? UK employees. UK employers contribute to a rise of taxes in April. IRS flagged 2 million tax returns for possible identity theft. So these are the stories going on right now. None of them are really hitting on what's going to really matter to people on the economy. And I'm looking at Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, and BBC right now. It's BBC Americas, but I don't know if they're going to necessarily only cover stories in the US. But nonetheless, it's that stuff that they got out there, the stuff that's going on with Zelenskyy. Trump did not have any major public announcements today. I wonder if they're taking a pause right now and reevaluating what's going on in the economy and putting some plans in place to take care of things. I genuinely hope that's what's happening behind the scenes. I don't know for sure. Alex Ortiz sending love from the North Pole. Wow. QAnon spoke on this years ago. First end of the USA, and then there's North America. Great Reset. I think the Great Reset got deleted, to be honest. At this point, Trudeau's gone. He was he was like the poster boy of that thing. I think that whole thing just got trashed. I think a logical outcome upon reality, US has 3 to 40 million population. What do you think will happen? Maine wants to call. Oh, hey, let me pin it in the chat. Hang on. It's a link, so it's kind of like a Zoom link. I'll pin the chat here. Hey, why is it making... There you go. Okay. I just put it in the chat. How do I pin it? Come on. All right. Chat has been pinned. Hopefully that link will take you to there. It says it's a link, but when I click on it, nothing's happening. Oh, something did happen. All right. There we go. Yeah. If you guys want to get on board, just check out that link. All right. And I mean, I want to open it up to like what you guys think upcoming economic challenge, what that all means to you. Because one thing I did forget. You want to use a different phone, please post number. Oh, it's not a phone number. It's just like a Zoom link. So the link, when you click on the link, it'll take you to a page you can use your phone to get to it. I'll just take you to a page that says, please let me use your microphone, whatever. And then I just add you into my live here directly. Let me bring up economic calendar here real quick, guys. Make sure that you see what I'm seeing still. Okay. So economic calendar coming up. Look at Wednesday. We've got major... Hey, get out of here. Core inflation rate, month over month. Core inflation rate, year over year. So inflation is getting reported on Wednesday. It's forecasted to go down slightly. What happens if it stays steady? What happens if it actually ticks up? So could you imagine inflation shows no signs of dropping, and yet they're projecting GDP to go negative? How in the world has the economy been mismanaged to the point where GDP is about to go negative and inflation is continuing to go up? Let's see what happens Wednesday. I'm hopeful it's not the case, but I still feel that we are in danger of that. And it's just looking at, real estate prices and stuff continuing to go up. Shortages in eggs and food. There's a lot of things that are still moving up to where it does give me pause that we might be in for something here. Let me see if we got anything else. Yeah, retail sales, industrial production. Coming out on the 6th. Oh, that's for China. I was like, why is it coming out on Sunday? Because it's Monday over there at that point in time. Okay, so that's the two big ones then. Or no, three. Here we go. Producer price index coming up on Thursday. So Wednesday we'll get inflation from a retail standpoint. Producer price index inflation we'll get on Thursday. And then GDP will get reported out on Friday. So this week can really impact markets big time based on these economic data points that come back. And then, of course, that translates to corporate reactions, jobs, and so forth at that point. I'm in the process of getting a Discord going, Maine. I don't have one up and running, unfortunately. Let me get a QR code. Hang on a second. Maybe I do have my call in. Hang on one second. Let me get... I don't know if you're on mobile or what. Give me one sec. Just got to do a little editing magic here on the fly if I can manage it. And hey guys, like and subscribe to the feed. I'd be very grateful if you could get me a little more circulation on this. I'll get a couple of interesting videos going here in a second. But let me... Oops. Hey, get over here. All right. Hopefully you can see that. So, if you are on mobile, I mean, if you're watching this on the horizontal stream, just, use your phone, scan the QR code. But if you are on mobile, take a screenshot, go to your Photos app, and then just tap the QR code. It'll make it a link for you automatically, so that you don't have to dig out the link from the description or from the pinned chat. But yeah, check that out, guys. I'll leave it up there for a second. I'm gonna look up the link to the petition real quick. Hang on, guys. Where do we got here? Copy. Okay, I'll put that as a pinned chat here instead. Okay. Outfit for America. Come on. Hey, I got to copy the link over from my phone again. One sec. All right, we got 15 signatures on that. Hey guys, check out the link for real. Hey, why is it like that? And make sure this link works. Okay, there we go. That works. All right. New pinned message. Click on that link. Check out the petition. It's the America First tax policy on corporations. Balance out revenues generated in the United States with employment in the United States, so that there's not a mismatch. There'll be kind of like a lower threshold or a lower limit established by putting policies like this in place. The left has studied a little bit to understand what that right limit is, but you don't want that situation where there's a drive to zero, because a lot of manufacturing is coming back, but the office-based side is where they're looking to attack and get more savings, which will be short-lived. But if you guys are interested in calling in, this is the link or the QR code on the screen. All right. I'll flash it up there again a little bit later. Okay. All right. I think I spent enough time chatting about that stuff. Let me get back to a couple of things I want to show you guys. Man, look at that stance. Jeez Louise, what's going on there? Well, we'll pull that one up in a second. So if you did watch the State of the Union with us, I think it was a fantastic address that Trump gave to Congress all the way around. Everything was impressive about it. But the Democrat response, it's a new senator that was able to give it. Is nobody in the party able to do it? Like, are they that unpopular of a party? They have to have somebody completely new take the address. Let's see what they had to say. Think about it together here.
Next, the Democratic response to President Trump's address before the joint session of Congress from Senator Alyssa Slotkin of Michigan. She's a freshman senator who served 3 terms in the House and before that worked for the CIA. Senator Slotkin was critical of President Trump and talked about the economy, national security, and federal job cuts.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alyssa Slotkin. I'm honored to have the opportunity to speak tonight. It's late, so I promise to be a lot shorter than what you just watched. I won't take it personally if you've never heard of me. I'm the new senator from the great state of Michigan, where I grew up. I've been in public service my entire life because I happened to be in New York City on 9/11 when the Twin Towers came down. Before the smoke cleared, I knew I wanted to make a life in national security. I was recruited by the CIA and did 3 tours in Iraq alongside the military. In between, I worked at the White House under President Bush and President Obama, 2 very different leaders who both believed that America is exceptional. You can find that same sense of patriotism here in Wyandotte, Michigan, where I'm speaking from tonight. It's a working class town just south of Detroit. President Trump and I both won here in November. It might not seem like it, but plenty of places like this still exist across the United States. Places where people believe that if you work hard and play by the rules, you should do well and your kids should do better. It reminds me of how I grew up. My dad was a lifelong Republican, my mom a lifelong Democrat. But it was never a big deal because we had shared values that were bigger than any one party. We just went through another fraught election season. Americans made it clear that prices are too high and that the government needs to be more responsive to their needs. America wants change, but there's a responsible way to make change and a reckless way. And we can make that change without forgetting who we are as a country and as a democracy. So that's what I'm going to lay out tonight. Because whether you're from Wyandotte or Wichita, most Americans share three core beliefs: that the middle class is the engine of our country, that strong national security protects us from harm, and that our democracy, no matter how messy, is unparalleled and worth fighting for. Let's start with the economy. Michigan literally invented the middle class, the revolutionary idea that you could work at an auto plant and afford the car you were building. That's the American dream. And in order to expand and protect the middle class, we have to do a few basic things. We need to bring down the price of things we spend the most money on: groceries, housing, healthcare. We need to make more things in America with good-paying union jobs and bring our supply chains back home from places like China. We need to give American businesses the certainty they need to invest and create the jobs of the future. And we need a tax system that's fair for people who don't happen to make $1 billion. Look, the president talked a big game on the economy, but it's always important to read the fine print. So, do his plans actually help Americans get ahead? Not even close. President Trump is trying to deliver an unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends. He's on the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to the wealthiest in America. And to do that, he's going...
Okay, she just lost me on that stuff. Robert Thompson, you might want to read the Constitution, sweetheart, the founding documents, the Bill of Rights, federal papers, and then you need to find where democracy ever shows up in it, which it does not. You're absolutely right. There's a reason that we are a constitutional republic. There's a reason. Because we protect minority rights. We don't go with the majority. Otherwise, who knows? Lord knows what lunacy we'd be stuck in. But let me back it up again. What was her language she just used here? I mean, it's blame Trump time all of a sudden, right? But let's get it straight.
Is trying to deliver an unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends.
Unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends. So the greatest beneficiaries of Trump's tax policy were the lower quartile in the country in terms of income. The lowest quartile of income did the best. They effectively had their federal taxes go to zero. And that was, you take the example of a family of four with, a $30,000 a year household income. Simply by doubling, well, actually more than doubled the standard deduction, it's $29,000 and change. They've effectively got zero tax liability. And then they doubled the child tax credit, so that's $4,000 that gets layered on as a credit back to them. And then there's more incentives, earned income tax credit, so forth. There's a lot more help that's going back to them. So imagine having no tax liability from a federal standpoint on that $30,000 a year, getting credits headed back your way. That boosts your standard of living considerably, right? Who else can say that their taxes were effectively eliminated from a federal standpoint, that it went to zero? Not the billionaires, right? That's what happened. And that's what Kamala and Biden were threatening to do away with. And yet she comes up here and starts shouting the old stuff again, that it was a tax cut for his billionaire friends. When everybody saw Trump call out Hillary Clinton for perpetuating tax code benefits for her billionaire donors at the time. All right, let's let her keep going. So unfortunately, she's stopped. It stopped working for me at this point, because this is not a new revelation that she's putting out there. These are long-standing principles and beliefs that the Democrats lost the election on.
He's on the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to the wealthiest in America. And to do that, he's going to make you pay in every part of your life. Grocery and home prices are going up not down, and he hasn't laid out a credible plan to deal with either of those. His tariffs on allies like Canada will raise prices on energy, lumber, and cars, and start a trade war that will hurt manufacturing and farmers. Your premiums and prescriptions will cost more because the math on his proposals doesn't work without going after your health care. Meanwhile, for those keeping score, the national debt is going up, not down. And if he's not careful, he could walk us right into a recession. And one more thing. In order to pay for his plan,
How convenient. It can walk us right into a recession. It's been blatantly obvious we've been headed into a recession since late last year, even before the election. If you remember, the jobs report that came out in November, just before Election Day, looked abysmal, and Kamala took a bigger hit based on that jobs number. This has been something that's been headed our way for quite some time. Even the dilemma of GDP going south and inflation staying a little bit too steady or slightly upward, something is being completely mismanaged. The printing press is being abused. Money is not being incentivized to invest in the country. Too much stock buybacks, right? The system's broken, and yet they keep pouring money into the broken system. And then you wonder why asset values go up and why billionaires become trillionaires at that point, right?
could very well come after your retirement. The Social Security, Medicare, and VA benefits you worked your whole life to earn. The president claims he won't, but Elon Musk just called Social Security the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time. While we're on the subject of Elon Musk, is there anyone in...
Okay, so Social Security, the comment she just made on it being the biggest Ponzi scheme of all time, it should be well understood that Social Security pays out more right now than it brings in tax revenue. How's that even possible? Is that not by definition a Ponzi scheme? Because they have to print to make up the difference at this point. It's a sad reality, but that's what's going on.
America who is comfortable with him and his gang of 20-year-olds using their own computer servers to poke through your tax returns, your health information, and your bank accounts. No oversight, no protections against cyber attack, no guardrails on what they do with your private data. We need a more efficient...
On what they do with your private data. Who's they again? Oh, you're talking about the government that you are a part of? It is really bizarre. It's really bizarre that they speak against government that they are a representative of. And yet if they were to hold any level of power, they would be absent any of those types of, any of that type of language. Look at the chat real quick. Gonna buy Floodland, my man, Maine. Okay. What amazes me, says Robert, is that they're blaming Trump for everything wrong. They likely don't understand how momentum works. Yeah, that's right. And I mean, at this rate, they're just not going to understand. They're just going to keep being left behind. Just a bunch of whiners, Adam says. Gee, don't you think Trump and Musk are stealing money? Yeah, I know. The two billionaires, right? The guy has like $500 billion, and yet he needs my social security number, right? So he can ID theft me. Well, by stealing money, I don't know if you mean... All right, let's keep this going.
Government. You want to cut waste? I'll help you do it. But change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe. The mindless firing of people who work to protect our nuclear weapons, keep our planes from crashing, and conduct the research that finds the cure for cancer, only to rehire them 2 days later? No CEO in America could do that without being summarily fired. Okay, so we've talked about economic security. How about national security? Let's start with the border. As someone who spent my whole career protecting our homeland, every country deserves to know who and what is coming across its border. Period. Democrats and Republicans should all be for that. But securing the border without actually fixing our broken immigration system is dealing with the symptom and not the disease. America is a nation of immigrants. We need a functional system keyed to the needs of our economy that allows vetted people to come and work here legally. So I look forward to the president's plan on that. Because here's the thing. Today's world is deeply interconnected. migration, cyber threats, AI, environmental destruction, terrorism. One nation cannot face these issues alone. We need friends in all corners, and our safety depends on it. President Trump loves to say peace through strength. That's actually a line he stole from Ronald Reagan. But let me tell you, after the spectacle that just took place in the Oval Office last week.
He stole from Ronald Reagan. I feel like he's always acknowledged Reagan and said that he wants to model himself after that stuff. So again, you see the how the messaging twists things. And watching things closely, I've heard a number of different Democrat politicians recently in the past few weeks talk about how they're really excited about how they've tightened up their messaging. They've tightened up their messaging, and now they have a winning strategy. That's the mindset that they're putting out there, a lot of them. And so if you take a step back and think about it, these Democrats have crazy policies that nobody likes, and yet they think that they can just hire a consultant to come in, repackage the crazy, and then they can do a better job selling it to us.
Reagan must be rolling in his grave. We all want an end to the war in Ukraine, but Reagan understood that true strength required America to combine our military and economic might with moral clarity. And that scene in the Oval Office wasn't just a bad episode of reality TV. It summed up Trump's whole approach to the world. He believes in cozying up to dictators like Vladimir Putin and kicking our friends like the Canadians in the teeth. He sees American leadership as merely a series of real estate transactions. As a Cold War kid, I'm thankful it was Reagan and not Trump in office in the 1980s. Trump would have lost us the Cold War. Donald Trump's actions suggest that in his heart, he doesn't believe we're an exceptional nation. He clearly doesn't think we should lead the world. Look, America is not perfect, but I stand with the majority of Americans who believe we are still exceptional, unparalleled. And I would rather have American leadership over Chinese or Russian leadership any day of the week. Because for generations, America has offered something better. Our security and our prosperity, yes, but our democracy, our very system of government, has been the aspiration of the world. And right now, it's at risk. It's at risk when the president decides you can pick and choose what rules you want to follow, when he ignores court orders and the Constitution itself, or when elected leaders stand by and just let it happen. But it's also at risk when the president pits Americans against each other, when he demonizes those who are different and tells certain people they shouldn't be included. Because America is not just a patch of land between two oceans. We are more than that. Generations have fought and died to secure the fundamental rights that define us. Those rights and the fight for them make us who we are. We're a nation of strivers, risk takers, innovators, and we are never satisfied. That is America's superpower. And look, I've lived and worked in many countries. I've seen democracies flicker out. I've seen what life is like when a government is rigged. You can't open a business without paying off a corrupt official. You can't criticize the guys in charge without getting a knock at the door in the middle of the night. So as much as we need to make our government more responsive to our lives today, don't for one moment fool yourself that democracy isn't precious and worth saving. But how do we actually do that? I know a lot of you have been asking that question. First, don't tune out. It's easy to be exhausted, but America needs you now more than ever.
I'm exhausted of listening to her talk.
If previous generations had not fought for this democracy, where would we be today? Second, hold your elected officials, including me, accountable. Watch how they're voting. Go to town halls and demand they take action. That's as American as apple pie. Third, organize. Pick just one issue you're passionate about and engage. And doom scrolling doesn't count. Join a group that cares about your issue and act. And if you can't find one,
she's talking to a group of fifth graders
here. Some of the most important movements in our history have come from the bottle up. In closing, we all know that our country is going through something right now. We're not sure what the next day is going to hold, let alone the next decade. But this isn't the first time we've experienced significant and tumultuous change as a country. I'm a student of history. And And we've gone through periods of political instability before. And ultimately, we've chosen to keep changing this country for the better. But every single time, we've only gotten through those moments because of two things: engaged citizens and principled leaders. Engaged citizens who do a little bit more than they're used to doing to fight for the things that they care about, and principled leaders who are ready to receive the ball and do something about it. So thank you tonight for caring about your country. Just by watching, you qualify as engaged citizens. And I promise that I and my fellow Democrats will do everything in our power to be the principled leaders that you deserve. Good night, everyone.
C-SPAN's Washington.
Okay, interesting. I don't know, was not moved. I think that people that did not vote for Trump are going to be thrilled about that. People that did would not be impressed at all, and everyone else probably fell asleep along the way. So she's not a brand new politician. She's been there for a little bit. Oh, excuse me. Congress now in the Senate, so okay. I mean, that's fine. Still very boring. Very boring. Here, quick Zelenskyy speech with the European Union.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy joined the heads of the European Council and European Commission to talk to the press ahead of an emergency summit in Brussels about the future of the Russia-Ukraine war. This is about 5 minutes.
Good morning. I'm very pleased to welcome today here President Zelensky. Dear Volodymyr, you are always bienvenue, always very welcome here to Brussels. Today the Council, it's a very important moment to build on European security. As you remember, 1 month ago we have a very important brainstorming. But now we are here today to take decisions and to deliver. First of all, I would like to thank the European Commission to come so soon with concrete proposals that give the opportunity for us to take concrete decisions, to increase our spending capacity, to spending better, to build our own capabilities. Of course, the security and defense of Europe is not separated of Ukraine security and defense. A stronger European defense, it boosts Ukrainian defense, and a stronger capacity for Ukraine defense is also very important to boost our own defense. That's why, because we are here to support Ukraine for achieve a comprehensive, just and lasting peace. And dear Volodymyr, we are with you since day one. We'll continue with you now, and we will continue.
It means
in the future,
world.
in the eventual peace negotiations, when we decided that is coming the right moment to negotiate, and most important, in the future as a member state of the European Union. Then, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, dear Antonio, for convening this extraordinary council. In extraordinary times, we need special measures. And thank you very much, Volodymyr, for coming here, because it's so important that we stand together. This is a watershed moment for Europe. And Ukraine, as part of our European family, it's also a watershed moment for Ukraine. Europe faces a clear and present danger, and therefore Europe has to be able to protect itself, to defend itself, as we have to put Ukraine in a position to protect itself and to push for a lasting and just peace. We want a peace through strength. And this is the reason why I present today to the leaders the Rearm Europe plan. The Rearm Europe plan provides up to 800 billion euros for defense investment. It gives the member states fiscal space to invest in defense. It gives the member states possibility to invest in the Ukrainian defense industry or to procure military capabilities that go right away to Ukraine. So it is to the benefit of rearming Europe, rearming the European Union, but also arming Ukraine in its existential fight for its sovereignty and territorial integrity. So today, Volodymyr, thank you for coming. It's a very important moment to show that we stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Thank you very much, dear Antonio, dear Ursula, and I want to thank all our European leaders, first of all, and for such signal, strong support, this Council, strong support from the very beginning of the war, and what's been during all this period and last week. You stay with us, and of course from all the Ukrainians, from all our nations, big appreciation. We are very thankful that we are not.
Council,
Hey guys,
it's a very important moment to build on European security. As you remember, 1 month ago we have a very important brainstorming, but now we are here today to take decisions and to deliver. First of all, I would like to thank the European Commission to come so soon with concrete proposals that give the opportunity for us to take concrete decisions, to our spending capacity, to spending better, to build our own capabilities. Of course, the security and defense of Europe is not separated of Ukraine security and defense. A stronger European defense, it boosts Ukrainian defense, and a stronger capacity for Ukraine defense is also very important to boost our own defense. That's why, because we are here to support Ukraine.
It's my little dog, guys. I don't know if you can see it. He's gone blind, so I have to help him go outside. I'll be back in a sec. Just gonna rewind this a little bit. Sorry for the duplication here.
Today
I will
the
be back in
Council,
just a sec.
it's a very
Like and
important moment to build on European security. As you remember, 1 month ago we have a very important brainstorming, but now we are here today to take decisions and to deliver. First of all, I would like to thank the European Commission to come so soon with concrete proposals that give the opportunity for us to take concrete decisions, to our spending capacity, to spending better, to build our own capabilities. Of course, the security and defense of Europe is not separated of Ukraine security and defense. A stronger European defense, it boosts Ukrainian defense, and a stronger capacity for Ukraine defense is also very important to boost our own defense. That's why, because we are here to support Ukraine for achieve a comprehensive, just and lasting peace. And dear Volodymyr, we are with you since day one. We'll continue with you now, and we will continue in the future, in the eventual peace negotiations when we decided that is coming the right moment to negotiate, and most important, in the future as a member state of the European Union. Then, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
So thank you very much, dear Antonio, for convening this extraordinary council. In extraordinary times, we need special measures. And thank you very much, Volodymyr, for coming here, because it's so important that we stand together. This is a watershed moment for Europe. And Ukraine, as part of our European family, it's also a watershed moment for Ukraine. Europe faces a clear and present danger. And therefore Europe has to be able to protect itself, to defend itself, as we have to put Ukraine in a position to protect itself and to push for a lasting and just peace. We want a peace through strength. And this is the reason why I present today to the leaders the Rearm Europe plan. The Rearm Europe plan provides up to 800 billion euros for defense investment. It gives the member states fiscal space to invest in defense. It gives the member states possibility to invest in the Ukrainian defense industry or to procure military capabilities that go right away to Ukraine. So it is to the benefit of rearming Europe, rearming the European Union, but also arming Ukraine in its existential fight for its sovereignty and territorial integrity. So today, Volodymyr, thank you for coming. It's a very important moment to show that we stand by Ukraine for as long as it takes.
Thank you very much, dear Antonio, dear Ursula, and I want to thank all our European leaders, first of all, and for such signal, strong support. This Council, strong support from the very beginning of the war, and what's been during all this period and last week. You stay with us, and of course from all the Ukrainians, from all our nations, big appreciation. We are very thankful that we are not alone, and these are not just words, we feel it. It's very important. You made a strong signal to Ukrainian people, to Ukrainian warriors, to civilians, to all our families, and it's great that we are not alone. We feel it and we know it. Thank you so much for everything, and signals to increase our production, and signals to, with the new program, to increase the European security. That's, I think, the great decisions. Thank you again for the invitation.
Okay.
Thank you.
Better. Bye-bye.
Saturdays.
Well, shoot, sorry about that. I had to take my little doggy out. He just recently got blind. He's like 15 years old, so I can't just let him go out on his own. Unfortunately, we've got a pool back there, so he needs to be pretty closely monitored whenever he goes out. But Zelenskyy, of course, rallying support together from around the world. Let's see who's next here. I got a list. I got one more I wanted to show you guys. Oh yeah. Nope, not that one. So the new budget. Look at this. What kind of pose is that? They got her in midway through there. Anyway, the Democrats had more complaints to kind of go through with people here in just the last day or so on the budget bill that's being proposed.
Republicans temporarily control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. Instead of using their majority to make life better for the American.
Hey, sorry to hear that, Robert. It's just one of those things, my man. You know what I'm saying. It's just one of those things. Got to keep a close eye on the little buddy.
Donald Trump and House Republicans are crashing the economy and hurting
look how contrived all of his movements are, his gesturing and his facial expressions. I guess the movements are the gestures. It's like, don't let any any crisis go to waste. They know this recession is coming, and they want to pin it directly on Trump. So think about this. How does somebody drive an economy into the ground in like 30 days? Like, is that even humanly possible? Right? I don't know. But that's what they're claiming is going on.
Want to shut down the government. The House Republican so-called spending bill does nothing to protect Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. Quite the opposite. The Republican bill dramatically cuts health care, nutritional assistance for children.
I'll be right back again, guys.
And veterans benefits. It is not something we could ever support. House Democrats will not be complicit in the Republican effort.
Don't hear any sound coming out from the...
American people. Catherine Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. We have a new bill, but it's the same betrayal
Sorry,
of
I hit
the
a bad button
American
there.
people. This is all part of the same scheme, the same crime spree that we are seeing that steals deserving taxpayer dollars, and all to give a tax cut to the very wealthiest people in this country. In this bill, there are also very specific harm will be done. 32,000 families that will lose affordable housing projects that will be halted. Our veterans who rely on the PACT Act funding because they were exposed to toxins while serving our country. That is defunded in this bill. Another shocking, as they're rolling back research across the country, in this bill, Alzheimer's research is zeroed out. 7 million people in this country are diagnosed with Alzheimer's, and the impact on our economy and families like mine, I lost my mom to that disease, is devastating. So why do this? It's all part of the same plot. To give Elon and the billionaire class a tax break at the expense of what families in this country.
So didn't we just hear this talking point? Tax break for the billionaires at the expense of everyone else. There's 1,000 billionaire families. Do you really think those 1,000 people's vote would outweigh the 340 million other folks in the country? I mean, it's just a bizarre proposition to even think of that being anywhere near the realm of possibility.
We are not going to let them take their health care, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid.
And then interestingly enough, let's look at what your donors or who your donors are. If it's pharma, defense, so forth, it's, this is like hypocrisy at its finest unfolding in front of us.
In order to betray American families at home. Pete Aguilar.
House Democrats want to support a bill that protects Social Security, Medicaid, and Medicare. We want to protect our communities. We want to ensure health care for veterans. This bill doesn't do that. It takes away veterans' health care. It takes away critical research funding. Those are the things that House Republicans are willing to do just to give Elon Musk and Donald Trump's friends continued tax breaks. That's unacceptable to House Democrats. We want to support.
So keyword, continued tax breaks. So these tax breaks have been ongoing. I mean, let's just say he's correct, right? But that's what they're all about. These tax breaks have been going on since when? Since the last 4 years? Since the Democrats controlled all houses of, the entire Congress and the presidency? The tax breaks have persisted since then. Why didn't they do anything about it if this was such a problem? And it was such a clear issue that had to be, called out like this.
A bipartisan piece of legislation. If House Republicans want to support real legislation that helps American families, and they want to do it in a bipartisan way, All they have to do is call Leader Jeffries and work with House Democrats. But they have so far been unable and unwilling to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Leader. Thank you.
Man, this is so bad. This is like on par with that really cringy video that 22 Democrats recorded word for word using the same little mic that they're holding up to their mouth. Each of them cussing at it, trying to get through to their folks. I mean, this is the tightened up language that they're so excited about. Look at this cameraman. I mean, that's that's probably their consultant, this guy in the middle. I just don't get it. I don't get it. All right, so I'm going to leave you all with Senate hearing here on some interesting stuff. Hang on, let's get this thing bigger. Come on, get big. Okay. Might need to fix the screen size here. One sec, guys. There's that. Make the guy a little bit bigger. There you go. Whoop. Shoot. Hang on. Fix this up real quick. There we go. All right. Sanctuary cities came and testified. Opening remarks from senators. Watch this. We'll watch this for a little bit and be comment a little bit, and we'll close it out.
Since President Trump assumed office, illegal entries at the southwest border have plummeted. A 94% drop in 1 month. 94%. Under President Trump, the world knows that there are consequences for unlawful entry into the United States. The border crisis was not the result of climate change, a lack of resources, or a failure to grant amnesty. It was the result of the last administration's deliberate choice. President Biden enacted policy starting on the day he assumed office to allow millions of unvetted illegal aliens to pour into the United States. Many of these illegal aliens have long rap sheets that include violent crimes. President Trump has an electoral mandate from the American people to deliver on his promises to secure the border and enforce the immigration laws of the United States. And he is delivering on this promise big time. The mayors here today each lead so-called sanctuary cities. And let's be clear, these policies only create sanctuary for criminals. Sanctuary policies violate federal immigration law by protecting criminal aliens at the expense of the American people. Sanctuary cities and states refuse to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement efforts and harbor illegal aliens. They often actively work to stand in the way of President Trump's mission to protect the American people and restore integrity to the American immigration system and the rule of law. Sanctuary cities forbid their officials, including those in law enforcement and public safety roles, from sharing information about illegal aliens in their cities with the federal government or turning over criminals in their custody to ICE. As a result, sanctuary cities release illegal aliens back onto the streets, where they often go on to commit more crimes. In Chicago, for example, an illegal alien who was recently arrested for killing a 63-year-old man had previously been arrested in Chicago for trying to lure a child. ICE lodged a detainer against the criminal alien, but Chicago authorities released him back onto the street because of the city's reckless sanctuary policy. And now an innocent man is dead because of Chicago's refusal to follow the law. These reckless sanctuary policies also force federal immigration officers to go into local communities to apprehend criminal illegal aliens. If sanctuary cities were to simply communicate and work with federal immigration authorities, then federal agents could arrest criminal illegal aliens in a secure environment like a state or local jail. Instead, they have to risk their own safety and public safety by having to go into uncertain, dangerous circumstances just to make arrests. Sanctuary cities make us all less safe and are a public safety nightmare. That is why I launched an investigation into sanctuary cities and why these mayors are here today. We cannot let pro-criminal, alien policies and obstructionist sanctuary cities continue to endanger American communities and the safety of federal immigration enforcement officers. Today, Mayors Wu Johnston, and Adams will be publicly accountable for their failure to follow the law and protect the American people. President Trump and his administration are taking action against sanctuary cities, and Congress must follow, not by allowing a single penny of federal funding to go to cities and states that prioritize criminal aliens over the American people. I now yield to Ranking Member Conley for his opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Every member here today, Democrats and Republicans alike, agrees that violent criminals don't belong in our communities. We all want our cities to be safe and have zero tolerance for violent crime, irrespective of the status of the perpetrator. Where we disagree is that my Republican colleagues prefer a selective application of the law to shield the President of the United States from accountability and this administration from the rule of law itself. In America, we uphold the rule of law,
like Donald Duck
independent
here.
from partisan politics, without fear or favor. Betraying those convictions, President Trump's Department of Justice has tried to force the conditional dismissal of very serious charges against one of our witnesses here today, in exchange for that witness's total and complete submission to the radical immigration agenda being propounded by the administration. And the DOJ has done so over the objections of a Republican acting U.S. attorney who President Trump appointed. Rather than enabling a flagrant, corrupt, and quid pro quo, 7 federal prosecutors, 7, including Republicans, resigned. One of them, a former clerk to Chief Justice John Roberts of the Supreme Court, said that anyone in his position, quote, would know that our laws and traditions do not allow using the prosecutorial power to influence other citizens, much less elected officials, in this way. History is calling on us now to stand up for those laws and traditions. Doing so also demands an affirmation of state and local sovereignty in determining the most effective ways to keep residents safe in compliance with federal law. To deny this sovereignty is an assault on the independence of every American city across the country. Today, Republicans have hauled before us the mayors of 4 major American cities to frame them as lawless because those cities have some limits on how intrusively and aggressively their own officials can conduct federal immigration operations and responsibilities. Let's be clear. The state and local laws that Republicans have issue with today are in full compliance with federal law. They do not obstruct ICE from carrying out its duties, and they are backed by evidence demonstrating that they keep people safe and safer in counties with laws that do not honor extrajudicial civil detainers and had significantly lower levels of violent crime than counties that have them. Mayors, police chiefs, sheriffs, and local leaders have made clear that the way to combat violent crime is allowing local police to do their local job of ensuring public safety in their own communities as they account for it. Commandeering them to spend limited time and resources as federal agents is a non-starter and can contribute to crime and non-cooperation in immigrant communities throughout the country. At this year's Conservative Political Action Conference, border czar Tom Homan said he is, quote, bringing hell to the city of Boston until it complies with his demands. I don't know what that means. Boston is my hometown, and I'm glad to welcome our mayor, Mayor Wu, and her 1-month-old baby here today. But I don't know that Boston welcomes Mr. Homan or anyone else bringing hell to the city. The Republican crusade against local independence doesn't just undermine public safety in our communities. It is blatantly cruel, and I say inhumane and un-American. Kenya Colindres, her husband Wilson Rogelio Velasquez Cruz, and their 3 children came to the United States in 2022 seeking asylum, a legal category of immigration, after escaping violence in Honduras. Wilson was granted a 5-year work permit, allowing him to work at a tire shop and to provide for his family here in the United States. Kenya said that her husband had never been in trouble and was, quote, a man of God. On January 26, the family of 5 was in church when Wilson was lured out by an ICE agent waiting to arrest him. Despite having valid work permits, the Trump administration refused to hear his appeal and is actively deporting him. Wilson was the sole breadwinner for his family. Now Kenya has to worry about how she's going to pay the bills and take care of her 3 children, on top of the fears that she and her children might be next. Last week in El Monte, California, Sitley, a woman who was battling bone cancer, tearfully watched as her mother, Yolanda, cried inconsolably as she was detained by ICE agents who refused to even present the detention order. Yolanda was Sitley's sole caretaker in towns, warning that ICE may board school buses and demand documents from children.
Who are these interns
Children
they got to hold
are
up
going
the
to be
stuff in the
afraid
back?
to go to school. One
I mean, imagine you
reportedly
sign
wrote
up for an
a goodbye note
internship
to
and
friends,
they just
saying,
got you
quote,
holding up props
"If
the whole
ICE
time."
takes me, don't forget about me. If ICE takes me, don't forget about me." From a child. Is that the country we want? America needs
Look at the lady next
immigration
to
policies to
she's
keep
like
everyone safe
reading it like
and
the
make
first
the
time she's seen
country
this thing.
stronger and allow us to grow and fill in the skill sets we don't have. If President Trump was serious about delivering those solutions, he would not be attacking the Constitution's guarantee of citizenship to children born in the United States. To see our country through this period of darkness, we need leaders who will stand up for the rule of law and will champion public safety at the local level. And American families, whether they're immigrant families or native-born families, deserve due process, deserve respect, and deserve that Statue of Liberty that welcomes all comers. I yield back.
Ranking member yields back. I request unanimous consent that Representatives LaHood of Illinois, LaLota of New York, Crank of Colorado, Malatakis of New York, Hurd of Colorado, Evans of Colorado, Van Dyne of Texas, Ocasio-Cortez of New York, Gillen of New York, and Davis of Illinois
All right, we're
be
going to get
waived
AOC
onto
to
today's
comment.
hearing
This is going to be good.
for the purpose of asking questions. Without objection, so ordered. And now, before we introduce the witnesses, I recognize Mr. Higgins from Louisiana for 20 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank the ranking member as well. Just to briefly, respectfully recognize the presence of the family of Wesley Haynes, a constituent. I'll speak to his case in my time, Mr. Chairman, but his parents, Patrick and Kathy, his wife, Olivia.
Oh, Bernie and AOC were just a joke. I just threw that in there for fun. And yet, some people picked them, right? Like, so we got 2%, 1% that picked them. I guess just out of a joke as well. So not serious at all. Complete joke. Voting it towards Trump is a strange one because you're saying in 30 days it is all his doing somehow, that the economy moves that fast that in 30 days it can go downhill like that. But anyway.
His little brother Brady are present today, and they have a hard exit soon. Their 4-month-old daughter, Anne Marie, is waiting at home for Olivia to care for. And I just respectfully acknowledge their presence, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Ranking Member. We will discuss the details of their case. They tragically lost Wesley Haynes last year. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to recognize this beautiful American family.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins. I'm very pleased today to welcome our outstanding witness panel, the mayors of 4 major American cities. First, we have Mayor Eric Adams, who's the outstanding mayor of New York City. He was sworn into office on January 1st, 2022. We have Mayor Mike Johnson, who's the mayor of the city and county of Denver. He was sworn into office on July 17th, 2023. I now recognize Representative Krista Morte from Illinois for 1 minute to introduce our next witness.
Mr. Chair, I'm pleased to introduce Brandon Johnson,
Mayor
mayor of the greatest city in the world, namely
sitting by
Chicago,
herself.
a city that was built by generations of immigrants, people like my parents and myself. Mayor Johnson was raised in Elgin, Illinois, which I'm proud to represent in Congress. The mayor was one of 10 children born to Andrew and Wilma Jean Johnson. His parents inspired him to become a teacher in the Chicago Public Schools and then later to run for office. Mayor Johnson won his first race for Cook County Commissioner in 2018 and later became mayor of Chicago in 2023. Mayor Johnson has dedicated his life to public service, and I'm pleased to welcome my fellow Illinoisan to the United States.
In person, she family is working to
Raise the right hand forward to your work.
Is my top priority, and it has been our administration's North Star. When I entered this role, my job was to help our city recover from the negative effects of COVID. Most importantly, to bring down crime. As a result, overall crime was down across New York City last year, and we have now had 3 straight months of double-digit declines in major crimes. I'm here today to testify on how New York City can continue to reduce crime, even as a sanctuary city. To be clear, a sanctuary city classification does not mean our city will ever be a safe haven for violent criminals. It also does not give New York City the authority to violate federal immigration laws. To the contrary, New York City will always comply with city, state, and federal laws as it does now. Law-abiding immigrants in New York have an important role. Immigrant New Yorkers, including those who are undocumented, pay billions of dollars in taxes and contribute billions more in spending power to our economy. Immigrants also play a vital role in the functioning of the city. This was on full display during the COVID-19 pandemic. The various immigrant residents of our city worked to keep the city moving, while many other New Yorkers were able to shelter in place and work remotely. Hospitals, the food industry, and many other businesses were able to function because of the commitment of our immigrant population. As mayor, I do not control who enters or remains in our country, but I do have to manage the population that is within our city. In order to carry out this function without having long-term negative ramification, I must create an atmosphere that allows every law-abiding resident, documented or not, to access vital services without fear of being turned over to federal authorities. I cannot have a city where parents are afraid to send their children to school or where children are sleeping on the streets, creating the potential for child exploitation and sex trafficking. If an undocumented person refuses to seek medical care until they have a medical emergency, our city's healthcare system will be strained. And if an undocumented individual witnesses a crime but is afraid to call 911 for fear of being turned over to federal authorities, criminals will roam free. And it reminds me of my early days as a police officer. I have seen firsthand the damage that can be done when someone is too afraid to seek out the police. Early in my career, I responded to a man who was calling out for help. We caught the suspect, but when it came to filling out the police report, the individual, an undocumented man from China, said he did not want to file a report and put a target on his back with federal immigration authorities. Approximately 4 decades later, our country still is in desperate need of comprehensive immigration reform. And as a result, New York City was hit with the largest humanitarian crisis in our city's history over the last 3 years. Federal law did not allow me to stop buses from entering New York City. State law required me to provide all in our city with housing and meals and to educate children. City law makes it unlawful to collaborate with ICE for civil enforcement. We complied with all of these legal requirements and still managed the humanitarian crisis with the care and compassion, while at the same time bringing down crime, recovering our economy, and preventing any child from being forced to sleep on the streets. Comprehensive immigration reform is long overdue. While the solution is not within my control as a mayor, I am committed to working with federal officials to go after violent gangs and those who harm residents of our city. This is why we have over 330 NYPD officers assigned to different federal joint task forces, over 70 of which are assigned to task forces with Homeland Security investigation, the criminal investigation arm of ICE. Those task forces focus on many different important priorities, including going after violent gangs and child exploitation.
I'm really surprised by the poll we have here going, guys. 2/3 not supportive of the sanctuary city policy.
With our city, state, and federal
Actually, no, I'm not.
To keep New York City to continue to be the safest big city in America. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Denver Mayor Johnson for his opening statement.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for inviting me to testify today. This committee convened this hearing on the critical topic of immigration. I want to tell you Denver's story. When I became mayor 20 months ago, Denver was already receiving buses of immigrants with little to no notice or coordination. At one point, we were receiving 10 to 11 buses a day, dropping off as many as 300 people, mostly women and children, in 10-degree weather with only sandals and a T-shirt, leaving them in danger of freezing to death on our streets. All told, 42,000 people arrived in Denver over 18 months, the largest per capita influx of any city in America. We are each entitled to our own opinion about what should happen at the border, but that was not the question facing Denver. The question Denver faced was, what will you do with a mom and 2 kids dropped on the streets of our city with no warm clothes, no food, and no place to stay? As mayor, I have to protect the health and safety of everyone in our city. As a man of faith, I have a moral obligation to care for those in need. As Scripture says, for I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger, and you invited me in. So that's what we did. In Denver, we believe our problems are solvable, and we are the ones to solve them. So we went to work. When we started, we had the largest encampment in Denver history, with more than 200 migrant families living in freezing temperatures. So we opened 8 different city shelters housing 5,000 people. City employees volunteered to take extra shifts, and Denver residents stepped up, making meals, donating clothes, furniture, school supplies. Some even welcomed families into their own homes. We helped 8,700 eligible
I'm going
individuals
to take a quick
apply
break,
for work
guys. I'm going to put my
authorization so they
little
can put food on
icon
their
up
own
there,
table,
but let's keep this
pay their
going. I
own
appreciate
rent,
the chat in there.
and
Like and
reduce the strain on
subscribe.
public
Take a look at the live goal, too, guys.
As a result, a year later, there is not a single migrant encampment left in the city. We have closed all of our shelters. We have connected people to jobs and housing, and the city's immigrant support budget has dropped by nearly 90%. And in the midst of this, migrants did not bring a wave of crime to Denver. In fact, crime went down. Homicides dropped 17%, shooting victims dropped 24%, auto theft down 29%. America is not just a place, it's a belief. Some people are born into it, some fight their whole life to get to it. It's a belief that all are created equal. It's a belief that it doesn't matter where you came from if you're willing to fight hard enough. Julian Becerra's parents believed that. So they brought him to this country from Mexico when he was 10. They taught him respect, and they taught him to love and serve his community. As an adult, he decided the most honorable way to serve his community was in uniform. So he enlisted in the Air Force. Then he served as a sheriff, then finally as a police officer, where he served with distinction until one day he was pursuing a criminal on a dangerous bridge and fell to his death. In the midst of the immigration crisis, I attended the Fallen Officers Memorial as I watched officers hand Officer Becerra's 10-year-old daughter a folded American flag. I watched her cry as she wrapped her little arms around that flag and holded it tight the way she wished she could hold her dad, but never will again. For the rest of her life, she will cherish that flag, that American flag, because it is the country that her dad loved, it is the country he chose, it is the country he served, it is the country he gave his life for. So if we want to tell the story of what impact immigrants have in America, we must tell the full story. That story must acknowledge that this country is lucky to have people like Julian Becerra, who love this country enough to risk their lives to keep us safe, to keep all of us safe. When buses started showing up filled with migrants, some in my city were afraid, just like I'm sure some of your constituents are afraid. They were afraid about crime and homelessness and worried about what these new people might take away from them. I understand that fear. And the truth is, people who are new to this country do good and bad just like all of us. But there's another truth. When those buses kept on coming, Denver made a choice as a city, not to hate each other, but to help each other. Not to turn on each other, but to turn to each other. And see if together we could solve a problem that felt bigger than any one of us. And that's what we did. It wasn't perfect, and it required sacrifice from all of us. But in the end, Denver came out stronger and closer than we were before. because Americans expect us to do more than point fingers. They expect us to solve problems. So if Denver can find a way to put aside our ideological differences long enough to manage a crisis we didn't choose or create, it seems only fair to ask that the body that is actually charged with solving this national problem, this Congress, can finally commit to do the same. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I now recognize Chicago Mayor Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Comer. Thank you to the ranking member Connolly and to the members of this committee. I have the great privilege and honor of serving as mayor of the city of Chicago, the third largest city in the nation. Established by a Black Haitian man and a Potawatomi woman, Chicago is and always has been a proud city of immigrants. Generations of new arrivals, including the descendants of the enslaved during the Great Migration, created a vibrant city where 1 in 5 residents is foreign-born. Each day I wake up to serve every one of Chicago's 77 unique neighborhoods and those who live in our great city. As mayor of Chicago, nothing is more important to me than the safety and well-being of all residents. And since I was elected, my administration has been laser focused on creating and implementing public safety initiatives that protect all Chicagoans. We launched the People's Plan for Community Safety, which builds trust between communities and law enforcement by prioritizing transparency and violence intervention. We established a dedicated robbery task force that reduced robberies by 25% citywide. We added over 200 detectives, increasing the clearance rates on our cases. And we've updated police equipment and technology so that our police officers have the tools they need to effectively prevent and fight crime. Our efforts to improve public safety by building trust with and investing in our communities are working. Violent crime is down in Chicago. The city ended 2024 with its lowest homicide rate in 5 years. The city is also safer because of our Welcoming City Ordinance. That law makes sure that the city's police resources are focused on our local priorities. In fact, the 40 years of Chicago's leaders have recognized that our policies toward civil immigration matters help to prevent and solve crimes. Put simply, any actions that amplify fears of deportations make Chicago more dangerous. Those fears cause witnesses and victims to avoid cooperating with police. The cooperation of all people, regardless of their immigration status, is essential to achieving the city's goals of reducing crime and pursuing justice for victims. When there is trust between city's residents and the police, undocumented immigrants come forward to report crimes to local law enforcement and provide information that helps the police solve those crimes. And now, I know there are myths about these laws, but we must not let mischaracterizations and fear-mongering obscure the reality that Chicago's crime rates are trending down. We still have a long way to go, but sensationalizing tragedy in the name of political expediency is not governing, it's grandstanding. Every violent crime is devastating, but scapegoating entire communities is not only misleading, it is unjust and it is beneath us. So let me be clear. Chicago's Welcoming City Ordinance and our other laws and policies do not lead to more crime. They do not prevent cooperation with federal law enforcement on criminal matters. And we do not harbor criminals. We arrest them, often because of laws that allow residents to feel safe helping the police. As mayor, I'm building a Chicago that embodies the dream of my father had when he came from Salis, Mississippi during the Second Migration, a Chicago that invests in housing, healthcare, jobs, and education. And that's why we've increased safe and stable housing by adding almost 4,000 more units, expanded access to health care by opening 3 mental health centers, and focused on getting our young people well-paying jobs, with summer jobs increasing by 45% since I've taken office. Our local partnerships have built a solid foundation, a better, stronger, and a much safer Chicago. We need this body's support for these efforts. We are ready to partner with you on the measures we know promote trust and create sustainable public safety. And to the people of Chicago and all hardworking people across this great nation, these values are our North Star. the drinking gourd we follow to a better future. We will not live in fear. It is not our portion. We will not go back. I do look forward to answering the questions of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Boston Mayor Wu for her opening statement.
Thank you. Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Connolly, and members of the committee, my name is Michelle Wu. I am the daughter of immigrants, and since November of 2021, I have had the honor of serving as mayor of Boston. I'm proud to be here on behalf of our city, the police officers, first responders, city workers, the faith leaders, teachers, parents, and neighbors who partner every day to make Boston the safest major city in the nation. And I'm proud every day to work alongside the greatest police commissioner in the nation, Commissioner Michael Cox. Every year since I took office, we've set a new record low for gun violence in Boston. Last year, Boston saw the fewest homicides on record in the last 70 years. Those are the facts. And behind these record lows are historic highs. The most ever young people working paid summer jobs. The most pre-K seats at no cost to families. The most affordable housing built in a generation. We have invested in the kinds of opportunities that cultivate prosperity and eradicate crime. And the laws on our books promote the kind of community trust that keeps all of us safe. In Boston, our police department resources and taxpayer dollars go towards preventing and solving crimes. And when it comes to criminal matters, the Boston Police partner every day with state and federal law enforcement. But Massachusetts state law and the Boston Trust Act make clear that immigration is federal law enforcement's responsibility. We are the safest major city in the country because our gun laws are the strongest in the nation, because our officers have built relationships over decades, and because all of our residents can trust that when they call 911 in the event of an emergency or to report a crime, help will come. This federal administration's approach is undermining that trust. In the past month, I've met with residents and faith leaders in community centers and places of worship, asking my constituents what they want Congress to know. And what I heard over and over again was fear and frustration. I spoke with pastors whose pews are half empty on Sundays, doctors whose patients are missing appointments, teachers whose students aren't coming to class, neighbors afraid to report crimes in their communities, and victims of violence who won't call the police. This federal administration is making hardworking, tax-paying, God-fearing residents afraid to live their lives. A city that's scared is not a city that's safe. A land ruled by fear is not the land of the free. Next month, Boston will celebrate 250 years of our nation's freedom. And in every one of those years, Boston has welcomed the world to our shores. From the English immigrants fleeing religious persecution, to the Irish forced out by famine, to the families from Haiti, the Dominican Republic, Cabo Verde, Vietnam, and so many more who call Boston home today. We are the safest major city in the nation. We are home to the greatest healthcare, the greatest colleges and universities, the most advanced innovators, and the 2024 world champion Boston Celtics. We are the cradle of democracy and the city of champions. We are all of these things not in spite of our immigrants, but because of them. 1 in 7 signers of the Declaration of Independence were immigrants. On the last 4 Red Sox rosters to win a World Series, 1 in 5 were immigrants. Of all the faculty at Boston University to have earned a Nobel Prize, all but 1 were immigrants. Today, 1 in 4 Boston residents were born somewhere else. Most have jobs, many have kids. All of them chose this country as their home because, like my mom and dad, they believe that here, where you've been doesn't limit where you're going. The strength of your character has nothing to do with the color of your passport. And how hard you work matters more than where you were born. That wherever you're from, if you pitch in, Look out for your neighbors and cheer for the home team. You can build a better future here for the people you love. So to every one of my neighbors back in Boston, know this: you belong here. This is your home. Boston es tu hogar. Boston te la cayu. 这是你的家. This is our city. We are the safest major city in the nation because we are safe for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. I now recognize Mr. Beer for his opening statement.
Chairman Comer, Ranking Member Connolly, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. The Cato Institute's half-century of independent research demonstrates that people of all races, religions, and birthplaces can thrive in a free society. Liberty must be protected, both from over-intrusive government and from private violence. Unfortunately, the president's chaotic, indiscriminate deportation plan does the opposite. It harms public safety, threatens Americans' rights, and undermines the successful integration of America's immigrants into its society and economy. The president's first action was to rescind the requirement that ICE target public safety threats first. He has ordered that millions of vetted immigrants be stripped of lawful status and deported. He is even attempting to deport the U.S.-born children of people without permanent status. This flagrantly unconstitutional act effectively orders a series of crimes, wrongful arrest and imprisonment, civil rights violations, and unlawful deprivation of voting rights. Never before in American history has a president sought the power to strip potentially tens of millions of Americans of their constitutional rights. The president is also explicitly asserting the authority to ignore any law passed by you, Congress, that provides due process for people accused of being in the country illegally. The administration has repeatedly misled you and the public about who it is targeting, stating it would focus on public safety threats, that only the worst of the worst would be sent to Guantanamo Bay, and that every person it had arrested had a criminal record. We now know that most ICE arrests since the inauguration have been of people without a criminal record. Indeed, he is arresting people who entered legally, never violated any law, and sending them to Guantanamo Bay prison. It is no surprise in this lawless environment that many people and many cities simply do not trust the federal government on immigration. That is a problem. But under our Constitution, states determine their policies. Congress cannot force them. It must reestablish trust. Unfortunately, some members of Congress want to force an indiscriminate policy of mass deportation on the entire country with no public safety focus. If Congress wants more cooperation, it should address the concerns of these cities. What Congress should do is reestablish trust. Indiscriminate mass deportation agenda is a far greater threat to public safety than any city policy. A mountain of empirical research shows that reasonable restrictions on ICE cooperation do not increase crime rates, and that immigrants lower crime rates. Immigrants, including illegal immigrants, commit crimes serious enough for them to be incarcerated at half the rate of U.S.-born Americans. Data from Texas shows that illegal immigrants are 36% less likely to commit and be convicted of murder. At least before this current mass deportation effort, immigrants were more likely to report crimes than U.S.-born Americans. Don't jeopardize that. Mass deportation is diverting law enforcement resources away from obtaining justice for victims. Indeed, it even targets the victims. Sabotaging local economies and obliterating communities will not restore public safety. It will make us poor while increasing the crime rate and victimization rate for Americans. There is a better approach. We don't need chaos and disorder of illegal immigration or of mass deportation. Why don't people come legally? Because Congress has provided so few options for them to do so, not updating its laws in the last 3.5 decades. Just 3% of those applying for permanent legal status in 2024 received it. That's the failed policy. Let peaceful immigrants pay to get vetted, work, and contribute legally. And let law enforcement at all levels focus on keeping Americans safe. Thank you.
All right, our witnesses have concluded their opening statements. We're going to begin with questions from members, and I want to remind the members we have 60 members today that are going to ask questions. So I'm going to strictly enforce the 5 minutes. I'll hit the gavel if anyone's still talking, and we'll allow the witnesses to answer the question. But let's please be mindful. We have a lot of questioners today for this very important hearing, and again, we thank the witnesses. I'll recognize myself to begin questions for 5 minutes, and I have limited time, so I want to start with a simple yes or no question, and I'm going to hold you all to that because after the first question, then we'll allow for a little more time. But Mayor Johnston, in 2017, Denver prohibited city officials, including corrections officers, from assisting and cooperating with any investigation, detention, or arrest procedures related to federal immigration laws. The city also stated that federal immigration authorities shall not be granted access or allowed to use the secure areas of any city or county jail. Mayor Johnston, is Denver a sanctuary city?
A lot of folks use that term.
Yes or no?
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Folks use that term differently. I can tell you what Denver does. We do not.
Okay, I take that as a yes. Mayor Johnson, no, yes or no? I take that as a yes. Mayor Johnson, on March 10th, 2023, you posted on X that Chicago must lead and live by the promise to be a sanctuary city. Is Chicago a sanctuary city?
A 40-year policy of being a welcoming city.
Yes.
A 40-year policy of a welcoming city.
Mayor Wu, in November 2024, you gave an interview noting that you served on the city council a decade ago when the Boston Trust Act was first passed. You said in that interview that in terms of Boston's policy, there is a prohibition on resources and personnel going to enforce civil immigration detainers, meaning Boston police and other departments cannot cooperate with ICE when it comes to detaining on civil warrants. Mayor, is Boston a sanctuary city?
Boston is a safe city.
I take that as a yes. And Mayor Adams, on November 12, 2024, you said, quote, this is a sanctuary city, but I must comment that you have, of the witnesses today of the major cities, you have publicly stated that you were willing to work with ICE on detaining the most criminal illegals, and I want to publicly thank you for that. But my question to you, sir, is New York City a sanctuary city?
Based on our classification, yes.
Okay. Last year, in a Boston suburb, an illegal alien raped and impregnated his 14-year-old daughter while living in a shelter for illegal aliens. Mayor Wu, under Boston law, would you turn this criminal over to ICE on a detainer?
Whenever there's a criminal warrant, Boston police enforce that and hold people accountable.
So would you turn that criminal over to ICE?
This happened outside the city of Boston, but I can tell you in the city, whenever someone commits a crime, whenever there's a criminal warrant, we hold them accountable. If ICE deems that they are dangerous enough to obtain a criminal warrant, and the Boston police will enforce it.
Will you turn that criminal over to ICE?
We follow the laws, and we
that
make
as a
sure
no.
that everyone...
In Chicago, an illegal alien who is a suspected member of a violent foreign gang who was brought into custody for his potential involvement in a murder. He was released when Cook County declined to press charges. This illegal alien is also facing charges for kidnapping and sexually assaulting his former girlfriend last year. Now he's on the streets. Mayor Johnson, under Chicago law, would you turn this criminal over to ICE on a detainer?
Our local law enforcement works hard every day to get criminals off the streets of Chicago.
Would you turn that criminal over to ICE? That's the problem. That's one of the topics of this conversation. That's one of the problems we've heard from Tom Hammond and from the Homeland Security is that in your cities, when someone's apprehended for a crime and ICE is now with this new federal policy wanting to come in and deport the criminal alien, that you will not cooperate with ICE. Will you turn that criminal over to ICE.
And we do not harbor criminals. Our local police department works hard every single day to ensure that the city of Chicago is
Yes
safe.
or no? Will you turn the criminal over to ICE?
With a criminal warrant from the federal government, our local law enforcement repeatedly collaborates with federal agents.
So you're saying publicly today, you will turn that alien over to ICE in a safe place like a jail and not turn him out on the street and say, here you go, ICE, good luck. You will turn that criminal over to ICE.
With a criminal warrant, as we have done for 40 years.
Should that criminal be turned over to ICE?
With a
Fair?
criminal warrant, they are subject to the federal laws, and that includes deportation.
My time has expired, but again, the point that we've got to iron out today is that we have to have cooperation. It is federal law to turn over those illegal criminals to ICE. And we have heard reports, and many of you have said publicly, that you are going to obstruct that. That is against the law, and we're going to hear more about that today. Now I recognize the ranking member, Conley, for his 5 minutes.
Thank you. Mayor Wu, I quoted Tom Homan, the so-called border czar, saying that he wanted to bring hell. He was bringing hell to the city of Boston. What did you understand him to mean by that?
Let's talk about Tom Homan. Shame on him for lying about my city, for having the nerve to insult our police commissioner who has overseen the safest Boston's been in anyone's lifetime. Bring him here under oath, and let's ask him some questions. I am here to make sure that the city of Boston is safe. Others may want to bring hell. We are here to bring peace to cities everywhere.
Mayor Johnston of Denver, what would your reaction be if Tom Homan wants to bring hell to your city, Denver?
We think that we have folks in Denver who are working hard, playing by the rules, paying taxes. There is no one that is seeking hell to come to Denver. What people are looking for is opportunity and hope.
And for the record, he can do whatever he wants to do, I guess. But the fact of the matter is you absorbed on a per capita basis the largest immigration a year or two ago, and you indicated that your crime rate actually fell. It didn't increase. Is that correct?
That is correct. Crime is down in Denver. We have homicides down 17%. Violent shootings are down 24%.
And in Boston, I'm sorry, I've got limited time. Mayor Wu, same thing in Boston. The Boston crime rate has been falling, correct?
We had 24 homicides last year, 24 too many, but that represented a tremendous reduction, one of the biggest drops anywhere in the country.
Thank you. So the correlation between immigration and crime is false, as you point out, Mr. Beer. Perhaps you can elaborate that. I find it ironic that you characterized correctly, in my view, President Trump and Tom Homan's approach to immigration as lawless when they're invoking law and order and crime as the rationale for their lawlessness. Could you expand on the lawlessness and the irony of the fact that, as you point out in your testimony, the crime rate among immigrants is half that of the native population?
That's right. I have a table in my written testimony that you can look at. Top 20 cities for immigration court filings over the last 4 years. 19 of those cities saw a decline in their homicide rate. If you look at all of the major cities, there is a negative correlation between increasing numbers of immigrants and the homicide rate. So that means more immigrants, lower homicide rates. That holds true.
He just looks like he's
United
making
States.
stuff up,
I
doesn't
think
he?
the correlation that's trying to be made is more immigrants, more illegal immigrants.
Like those
more
aren't even
chaos,
real
more
prescription
crime.
glasses.
That does not hold. What we
They're
do
just the
see
accessories.
under this
No
administration
prescription in
is
there.
an increasing willingness to ignore the laws. He is, as I mentioned, signed an executive order that says he can ignore due process rights for people who are accused of being in the country illegally. This is an incredibly dangerous assertion of authority and should be investigated by Congress.
And is it a reasonable proposition for a local leader? I know I was chairman of my county, which is like being mayor of a large county. And, we focused on local law enforcement. We tried to help the feds when we could. We were cooperative where we could be. but our job was local law enforcement. And there is a clash when ICE behaves this way, and I described some horrible incidents. It instills fear in the immigrant community, and it fosters non-cooperation rather than cooperation, which is the mandate of each of these leaders, is it not?
Absolutely. We want cooperation. Many of these cities are the reason why immigrants are more likely to cooperate and report crimes to the police than the U.S.-born population is. So there are good reasons to limit this mass deportation of people in their communities.
I would just argue that the premise of this hearing is false. We have local law enforcement cooperating with the local...
All right, guys. Thanks for hanging in there with me. I'm going to close it out for the evening. I appreciate everybody that's participated in the chat, very engaged. I'll get a Discord going up soon so you can continue the discussion into the Discord post-stream. But like, subscribe. Very grateful for the subscriptions, folks. And I will see you guys on another stream. I'm going to cut it through to the theme song. Closing it out. Like and subscribe, folks.
In the shadow she lurks, a digital sage. Her words cut through like a sharpened blade. Political cow, her voice brings rage. A rebel in the neon-born parade. With a keyboard she wields her might, piercing lies with truth so light, drifting through the endless night, exposing wrongs to make them right. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a world where falsehoods grow, her wisdom like the wind it blows through every corner, every show, a beacon where the lost clouds glow. Political cow calling out deceit through the screens where fake news meet. She saves us from the twisted tale. Her knowledge fights where logic fails. In a cycle where truth gets blurred, her voice is the sword